Suge he wanted to sign me to Death Row East.
Plus, you know we got a Death Row East going on. Crusher, you heard about that?
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, hold on. Dabu! Sit!
Word up, I want to do this album called One Nation.
I said, Pac, let me say something to you. I said, Nas said he don't want no problems. I said, but you're gonna wind up with a problem, but you keep pushing him, and you pushing him into a corner.
Come on, man. For me, I drop $1 million on your head.
I want to talk about how Pac was extending his hand to the East Coast during that time, because it wasn't just Kane. It was cats like K Solo, Eric B, Melle Mel, and Scorpio. Pac was reaching out to a lot of the OGs on the East Coast and showing them love and showing them that there was a possibility for them to keep getting to the money and keep having a career over at Death Row, when most of the East Coast had written a lot of these guys off. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys, like I said, they wasn't quote unquote hot anymore. They wasn't on Hot 97. Hot 97 wasn't playing none of they newest stuff, you know what I mean? If they older stuff at all, they definitely wasn't playing none of the newest stuff that they was putting out.
When I heard about it, I went to Suge and said, okay, you're gonna form Death Row East. Eric B, at some point, it was announced that Eric B would be heading up Death Row East.
By mid-1996, Death Row Records was a huge commercial powerhouse generating well over $100 million annually. Thanks to artists like Tupac, Snoop, and Dre, who made it the world's biggest rap label, selling millions of records globally.
Out on bail, fresh out of jail, California dreaming. Picture perfect, I paint a perfect picture. Showing up, I keep my hand on the gun.
Death Row has a bigger reputation for success than anything else.
Suge Knight had plans to expand Death Row Records into the East Coast, and Pac was going to do his own projects, but first he was going to help with the East expansion so that later Death Row would back up Tupac's projects. Tupac was going to be the face of the new company Death Row East, helping with promotion and getting the label from the ground up initially.
Can we talk about Death Row East? What is exactly happening, and what can we expect from it?
You believe in God?
Certainly.
Believe in Death Row East.
Then he would move on to his own plans like Machiavelli Records and Euthanasia. Machiavelli Records was supposed to be his record label, distributed through Death Row, and Euthanasia was to be Pac's independent film production company. Eric B was announced as the president of the new company Death Row East, which was a great move by Suge since Eric B was a well-respected OG. Suge's presence in New York was seen as a direct attack by some East Coast artists, mainly Bad Boy Records. Puffy knew with Tupac's influence and Suge's money, Bad Boy Records could lose their East dominance. Several meetings took place in August 1996. Death Row East was in full motion and merchandise was already produced, as we can see by the shirts from the famous 1996 MTV Video Music Awards interview.
From Death Row, introduce yourself, my man.
I'm Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur.
Jimmy Henchman, who previously worked with Diddy, was allegedly pulling the strings to sabotage the Death Row East project. And this was another reason for Tupac to go for a full-scale war with them, as he believed they set up his quad studio shooting in 1994, and now they team up against him yet again. This was a takeover attempt, as Pac and Suge had a plan to do a collab with several East Coast artists on the One Nation project, which was supposed to propel Death Row East and squash the East versus West beef by providing opportunity for everybody who's willing to take their side. Death Row East had a brilliant plan to start with the OGs like Eric Kane and Melle Mel, who all somewhat faded at the time and didn't receive much radio play on the East Coast.
Me and Pac had got real cool, and then plus we had reconnected like right before his death, because Suge he wanted to sign me to Death Row East. So me and Pac had reconnected at that point as well.
At one point, we was trying to set up a deal with me and Scorp and Pac and then some of the outlaws, you know, and yeah, we, you know, he chopped it up, and, you know, showed us real respect. I mean, he's a good, respectable dude. If you got a young brother rapping right now, I'm almost sure almost none of them, either they don't know or they don't care who the fuck I am. I'm almost positive of that. When they actually should. because that's their craft. Pac was one of the brothers that actually, he recognized, the greatness of the game, or the great ones. He recognized, and that goes a long way to show what kind of dude he was. Like, a lot of people that hear about Pac, and like you would hear one thing, but if you have a chance to sit down and talk to him, he's a totally different type of brother. He's more of a thinker. The deal was basically set up. We had the whole deal set up. We was going to do a deal. It was going to be me, Scorp, and the Outlaws, and we was going to do an album.
Death Row was to reignite their careers, which would be an instant big respect gain with the pioneers on the label, and then getting new blood and taking over the entire East Coast scene and uniting everybody under the Death Row umbrella. That was the original vision by Suge and Tupac for Death Row East. Mike Tyson, who was a global superstar, had a major influence in New York. He was a friend of Tupac and Suge, who would also be a crucial bridge between East Coast and West Coast. Suge and Pac were forming alliances with the Queens and Harlem Street networks as well, because Suge knew he would need the streets to establish his presence, which would give him a firm stronghold on the East for Death Row Records. The previous public verbal assault of East Coast rappers like Puffy, Biggie, and others by Tupac and Death Row with diss songs like Hit 'Em Up was seen as a declaration of war by the East Coast rap scene.
Deserve to die. Look, I got your face to say no motherfucking movie. Out here in California, see, I was only talking to nigga, but I'll kill all of y'all. Then wrong. So right before you die, you pop before nigga. Before I leave, make sure everybody heard no I'm in every motherfucking word when we ride on our enemies.
So Eric B had a conversation with Tupac where he told him that he can't bash the entire coast if this Death Row East project was about to go anywhere. You have to be clear that you don't have beef with the East Coast, but only certain people from the East, Eric told him. And shortly after this conversation, Tupac and Nas squashed their beef just after that '96 Death Row East MTV interview took place.
I had a conversation with Tupac.
Half of New Yorkers commenting on me getting shot. And before, they was all like, we didn't see nothing. Niggas hypocrites. I thought you niggas knew. I'm the most thuggish nigga out here. I have no motherfucking fear. I have no fear. I have only ambition, and I want mine. And I will do anything to protect and feed my family. They disrespected me, my name, my family, what I have been through. These niggas can't touch us. They can't. They can't. Really, it's funny.
And I told him, I said, Pac, let me say something to you. I said, remember as kids when you had a little dog and you push the dog and you kick him, or you take a stick and you keep sticking him? I said, Nas said he don't want no problems. I said, but you're gonna wind up with a problem because you keep pushing him and pushing him, and you pushing him into a corner, and he's gonna bite you.
Yeah, hold up. At the height of the beef, they started Death Row East.
And he was like, yo, E, man, nobody ever said that to me, and the truth. I said, so we showed up at the park. We had probably about 80 people with us. Nas got another 50, 60 people with him in the park. So I tell Pac, I said, man, you got to go over and talk to him, man. And because I said, this is about to be a mess. Now, we all from Queens. So, and Nas is my little brother. So we all family. So now I'm in the middle. So I told Pac, I said, Pac, you got to make this right because this is about to be a mess. You know what I'm saying? Because you keep pushing Nas into the corner like he's a girly man, and that's not how he's built. So you forcing him to do something now. So he went over and they talked about it and they hugged it out, man. And I never forget when Tupac came back, he said, E, man, I just want to say thank you, man. You're right, man. Nas is a cool dude and this and that. So the album that came out and it was dissing everybody was never supposed to come out. Nas was supposed to fly back into LA and him and Pac do an album together.
After him and Nas met in the park, he was going to scrap the whole album.
He was in New York and there was a lot of tension flaring, right? I think he had got into it with Jungle, my brother, at the award show. Where I was coming from really wasn't an all love place because there was a rumor of Machiavelli coming out. So at that point, it was necessary for us to address the situation because they was in the city, and we had to step to our business. You know, their chest was out, they was doing their thing, Death Row side. We had a great convo, man. He was like, you know, he explained that he thought I was dissing him, and he thought, and not on the song The Message.
Fake thug, no love, you get the slug. CB4 Gusto got stitched up and went through, left the hospital that same night.
I was like, well, I heard you was coming at me. I said, no, it wasn't about you, but I heard you was coming at me, you know, back and forth. And he was like, yo, Nas, we brothers, man. We're not supposed to go through this. And I was like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, so we had a plan to squash it in Vegas. So I was out there when he was in the hospital.
Because I mean, I remember being on the plane with Pac, and he was so excited. He was like, "E man, you right, man. Nas is a good dude, man." But he said, "E man, I got some records, man. I gotta erase all the records." You know what I'm saying? I gotta erase all these records. And he wanted Nas to come out, and he wanted to do an album with him. And he was excited about it. Yo, E, after we come back from the fight, yo, man, I'm gonna call Nas and fly him out here, man, see if he feel like coming out, man, or I'll go back out there. And he was excited, you know, to work with Nas.
The first signed artist on Death Row East was Craig Mack, a former Bad Boy artist on whom we did a separate video how Diddy ruined his career. By signing Craig Mack, Suge Knight already threw the first punch at Puffy. Tupac recruited the Boot Camp Clique and Greg Nice and already began working on the One Nation album.
I got this new project coming out along with some other brothers called One Nation, and it's like an East Coast, West Coast collaboration.
Tupac called us. Word up, I want to do this album called One Nation. He said y'all was one of the only dudes that bigged me up when I was locked up. So that was the reason why he had got in touch with us specific, and he wanted the world to know that One Nation is about us respecting hip hop in the streets as a culture or as one nation. And if that person right there, he, you know, gotta get it this way, or if that person gotta get it this way, you know, then fire up, because they gotta get it. You know, that's how he felt.
Suge was ready to invest millions to conquer the East and run Diddy out of business. Everything was moving quickly, and Death Row wasn't playing around. When someone like Diddy feels threatened, he will do every trick in the book to save his skin. Now listen to his own words on what he did.
Come on, man. With me, I drop $1 million on your head. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Been nice too long. Just gonna start making y'all niggas disappear, man. First, you take your records off the radio. Then I'm a motherfucker. Erase your social security number. You know. Take your birth certificate out the file. I'm gonna do that to your whole fucking family. I ain't gonna have no mercy for you. You understand? No more Mr. Nice Guy. You ain't got the muscle. You better have the hustle. Keep your motherfucking mouth shut. Biatch.
With the recent 50 Cent Diddy documentary, you can see how this scumbag played everyone from the shadows, including his own circle of people. You can see the pattern where he could have set up both murders, Big and Tupac, the final straw being this Death Row East project. As he was cornered and knew Death Row was taking over, he was going to lose his position, so he went all in to remove Suge and Tupac. Then if the backlash and pressure is too much, he removes Biggie as well. So the situation can stabilize, and it serves as the great reset of hip-hop. With losses on both sides, everything will calm down, and ultimately, he comes out on top. Diddy is a talentless dude who, without Biggie, was a nobody. Now you ask, why would he remove Biggie? Simple, because he feared eventually the West Coast will retaliate for the murder of Tupac. So he doesn't want to live the rest of his life in fear. So he removes Biggie as well, and it's all over. He wins and plays the nice guy who never publicly fed into this beef and even tried to stop it. But from the shadows, he orchestrates the demise of everyone who he felt threatened by, including the people from his own circle who could eventually get out of his control, Biggie being one of them. And that's what he did for decades after. If he couldn't control you, he would destroy you. Shortly after the Tupac shooting, Suge went to prison and Death Row Records was crumbling. The biggest record label in the world was effectively crippled, and Death Row East never took off. With Tupac out of the way and Suge behind bars, Death Row was slowly picked apart. Money-hungry scavengers took whatever they could, and by the time Suge got out of prison, Death Row Records was a relic from the past. Suge could not keep himself out of problems. His gang ties ultimately brought his downfall. Death Row Records filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in April 2006, while Diddy continued to destroy lives in the following decades to come. And that's perhaps the only thing he ever had talent for, destroying people's lives.